What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson here with Brady Quinn and Douzable. This is going to be your favorite midweek off the rails show. But Monday is kind of a big deal. Or are we calling it a Brady? I don't think we're calling it a Brady Quinn football show. What about Brady Quinn Tuesdays? Tuesdays with Brady.
Tuesdays with Brady.
Tuesdays
is dope.
I like that.
My name is keep it Tuesdays. I like that.
So we're gonna get to the Aaron Rodgers injury and talk about that at length. I mean, it sucks. Look, it just sucks. It sucks. It's the worst. I think it hits home. Both of you guys have close or tangential connections to either Aaron Rodgers or the Jets. I mean, very close connections depending on how you want to look at it. Obviously, you see the Jets helmets behind Deuce there. Monday night was a bummer. It was crazy because it was such a wild game in and of itself, and yet the injury happens. Before we get there, though, we do have to rewind to last week's show, at which point Deuce noted that Brady and I should have some kind of bet for the NC State Notre Dame game, correctly. Unfortunately for me, Notre Dame was a 7.5-point favorite. I decided to make the bet who wins. Not that it mattered because Notre Dame covered pretty handily. It was like a really close game late in the third quarter. And it ended up with us getting our butts kicked badly.
Yeah, it all started with a hot dog at halftime and an Audric Estime 80-yard touchdown run. The rest is history.
Yeah, but it wasn't halftime. There was a giant lightning delay because our brand new $50 million scoreboard got struck by lightning. Although the school reached out, they told a bunch of reporters in the press box, they're like, that is technically incorrect. It was short-circuited due to weather concerns. It was like, that's lightning, mofos. You got find a power cord got struck by lightning. The scoreboard didn't get struck. Whatever the case, when we're in a lightning delay and the scoreboard, the brand new $50 million scoreboard's malfunctioning, I can tell you, having rooted for this team for a long time, what's happening when we come out of the break and bang, bang, 80-yard touchdown run.
Real quick, did anyone try to use a photo you took of that lightning striking the scoreboard?
Did anybody try to use it? What do you mean?
Use a photo or ask permission to use anything that you posted?
Oh, a lot of people. Yeah. That's right.
We used it Saturday in the pregame show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Randy Brickley texted me. He was like, "Did that really happen?" I was like, "Yeah." ESPN reached out, was like, "Can we use this?" Some weather channel reached out and use this, and then FS1 was like, "Can we use it?" I was like, "Only if Brady Quinn does the postgame show in an NC State hat." And Brady comes in and replies to the tweet and goes, "You do not have permission." And there were a bunch of people who I don't think knew that Brady and I are friends and we do this podcast, and they were like, "Legend move by Brady Quinn," flying in. So fast forward to today. And I lost the bet, and I said if NC State won, if NC, I don't remember what the bet was. Brady was wearing a Wolfpack hat or something on the show, which is, really, frankly, it was gonna be a pain in the butt. This is really a long con for me to get a Brady Quinn jersey. And Brady's like, "What's your address? I'm going to mail this to you. Get this mailed to you." I was like, "Wow, that was really fast paying off this bet." I was like, "Will you sign it? Then we can." And Brady did sign it, and he sent me the jersey. And as you can see here, it says, "Brinson sucks. Go Irish." Brady Quinn, number 10.
I love it.
This made my day when I opened up. I got this package in the mail yesterday. Of course, it got here on time. And because you guys reverse double covered, Brady is requiring me to chug a beer on the show.
That's how it goes. Okay. On our show, when you lose a bet, as bad as Will does, you have to chug a beer. That's how it is.
I don't know if I'm allowed to show that.
Huh?
Yeah, a little
That's
highlight.
The good stuff right there.
But because in lieu of the Old Tuffy, we do have an Old Tuffy pint glass.
Old Tuffy, man.
All right. Let's see it.
All right. Why don't you talk about Aaron Rodgers and the injury while I Brady, would you say this is the worst, the most
it's the most devastating injury to a professional athlete, at least in my lifetime, as far as the hype building up to it. Hard Knocks was able to capitalize off this. Well done, Will. Everything involved. The Jets, their aspirations. I looked at them as a playoff Super Bowl contender team. I think you just felt like maybe he was kind of reborn there, the way Hard Knocks portrayed him and the media portrayed him. There was just so much hype coming into it. And it would have been one thing if it was the end of the first game with 4 plays. 4 plays? Will, you okay over there, buddy?
Yeah, just not used to chugging beer at 2, champagne and beers at 2 in the
struggle is
afternoon.
real
That's
right
because
now.
you're a beta. We're
The struggle is real.
right? You're going to lose a lot of bets. We're going to work on you chugging beers throughout the course of the
I
season.
mean, if I have to chug a bunch of beers, I mean, like you did like have to donate $8,000 to charity last year because the Jets wouldn't, or $7,000.
It was 5. Okay, it was 5, and I voluntarily did that.
I know.
I'll put it this way: I was in New York for the game. I was there on behalf for a charity, and I'll put it this way: like it was a Tiger Woods charity event. Tiger was up on stage. There's other professional golfers there: Ricky Fowler, Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Michael Strahan was hosting it. It was really, really cool. The injury happened, and it was one of those deals where like you saw everyone in the crowd start checking their phone. Like,
whoa!
I mean, you're talking about like people in close proximity having Q&A talking with Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods,
greatest of all time, and like everyone's distracted by this, and people were like, as soon as that portion ended, they get up, they go to the bar, they start drinking, and they're like, "What the hell just happened?" This is the life of a Jets fan in a nutshell, basically. That was the gist I got from it.
Yeah, Brady. And to speak about that, there's actually a saying that Jet fans have. It's "we can't have nice things." Like literally, that's what Jet fans always say.
We can't have
nice things. And to your point, I mean, it felt like Aaron Rodgers was reborn in New York, right? We saw him have a flow of energy that we haven't seen in the last few years. I mean, we saw him at, the Taylor Swift concerts with his teammates. We saw him at, musicals and plays on Broadway. Yeah, on Broadway with his teammates. We saw him at different sporting events. He had a real nice relationship with Sauce Gardner, and it was really dope because we actually talked about this on last week's show where we saw what Matt Stafford's wife said about him and the young players on that team, but it seemed like it was the total opposite of Aaron Rodgers. Like he really was infused with energy with his youthful teammates. You saw Sauce Gardner get him a chain. He's rocking a chain in the weight room and everything. So we saw a new version of Aaron Rodgers where last year when he was in Green Bay and there was complaints about the young receivers not getting the hand signals, not having continuity with their quarterback. It was the opposite in New York. He was there the entire offseason, not only on the field, but off the field with his teammates. So he brought a new life around the New York Jets organization, I would say. So like Brady said, for it to end in 4 plays, right? It's gut-wrenching is the word that comes to mind, right? For
I would say a lot of people's prom night probably was similar, ended way too soon,
That's a 4 minute analogy.
4 minutes
really
in. 4 minutes in. Jeez.
But you feel first and foremost for Aaron, right? Because coming out of the dark, there was rumors that he could retire. He even kind of talked about that. But then he found an influx of energy. And we know that Green Bay played a motivational part in that process as well. Wanted to prove that he could still be that guy that won back-to-back MVPs. And the continuity that he brought with his teammates, you just feel for him, especially being 39. And Brady, you can speak to this. Like, as you get older, man, it's hard to come back from injury, especially in the Achilles at 39. He's turning 40 in December. So you just feel for him. You feel for the Jets, right? Because they went all in to get Aaron Rodgers. Like this team was based off what Aaron Rodgers could do for this team this year because you got a championship type defense. We saw Breece Hall, right? We were wondering where he was at. I mean, he looked explosive Monday night, right? And he only touched the ball 11 times. So imagine
what about Garrett Wilson?
Imagine when and then Garrett Wilson, the superstar on the outside. So it was all based on Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback. So you feel gutted for them. I mean, heck of a job in the circumstances for that team to come together and win that game versus a divisional foe who a lot of people have won in the AFC East. But one would think like the expectations have to be drastically different with Rodgers not being at quarterback.
Yeah, Brady, Will, you can probably speak to that. I mean, what is the win-loss total number now for the rest of the season? I believe it's at least 3 games less. Is that what I saw?
Yeah,
close
so like
to
Sportsline's projections when the injury happened, like if Rodgers was out for the season, because there was buzz like during that, like during the game, it was like his calf.
They didn't know.
They didn't know, but it was like, I mean, Adam Schefter got on there at halftime and like speculated, right? I mean, like nobody knew, but
I reached out to someone Monday night. I told someone who I was close to who's in this world that does that for a job, and I said, hey, this is what I've been told. They're just going to confirm it tomorrow with it. But much like the ACL test, you do the same thing for an Achilles. You know when it's ruptured. You know when they knew.
Right.
They just didn't know.
Exactly. Like they did the X-rays and they're negative, and the Jets tweet that out. But it's like he was in a walking boot.
It wasn't a bone.
Right.
You can only see that on MRI.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think but I was saying the immediate projection reaction was that it went from a 9.6 wins down to 4.9, and like a 60%. Oh yeah, huge. A 60% chance of making the playoffs down to a 4%, 5% chance. Now after the win, that went up to like 15%, I think, just because you get that win against the Bills. That's a big one.
Yeah, you got 16 games left. It's a big divisional win.
Yeah. So I think it's like, I mean, the difference is like at least 3 games in terms of what the expectation is.
I think it was
Rodgers
like
versus
6.9 after.
Yeah, 9.6 to 6.9, and then 60% to make the playoffs down to like 12% or 15% or something like that. So a huge swing.
Yeah, and I think the question that everyone's wondering now, like, hey, what now? What do you do now? Robert Saleh comes out. He says, hey, Zach Wilson's our guy. I listened to that, and I think the first words before that was like they're going to evaluate, what's out there. And I think there's a couple thoughts here. Do you bring in a guy like Matt Ryan, who I think would make a lot of sense? He said he's officially not retired. I think you look at last year in Indianapolis and go, that was a dumpster fire. He could come in. He could operate within the system. He's been in West Coast before. He's a smart guy. He could end up being the guy, I think, coming out of the bye week probably, if you make this decision relatively soon. Or there's the other thought of, can we go trade for someone? Do you go for a Jameis Winston? Do you go for a Gardner Minshew in Indianapolis, where maybe you've got a team that's willing to part ways with their backup and you don't have to give up that much to get him because you feel like that's where our team's at right now?
And Andy Dalton from Carolina or something like that.
And sure. I mean, again, you're evaluating all those different potential possibilities, right? I do think this presents this is something that like many people have talked about, maybe because they're not really excited about it, but look, let's just assume that Zach Wilson's the guy, at least for the short term, maybe even long term, rest of the season. The good thing for the Jets is this will give you clarity on the situation.
Yeah.
Like, this is not how you want the season to go. It wasn't.
For sure.
But to be honest with you, like, the fact of keeping Zach Wilson there, and they keep talking about development, all this stuff, it's like, dude, you got to make a decision on his 5th-year option after the season. How can you do that if he's riding the bench? Guess what? He's not riding the bench anymore. He's your starter. And so you now get an opportunity to let him play this season. Maybe he plays well. Maybe he's grown. Rodgers has taught him a lot. He's going to hang around, continue to mentor him. Maybe he helps Zach Wilson continue to mature into the player you thought he was. And you get to the end of the season, you say, look, Rodgers is back. He's going to be healthy for the next year or two. We're going to roll with that, but we're going to extend Zach because we feel good about his upside, and we can work out an extension or a long-term deal with him, whether that's through pick up the 5th-year option and extension or however they work that out. But that's one point of clarity you will find with the Zach Wilson situation. And look, and if you play him this year and things fall by the wayside, you can move on. There's no reason to keep him around and let him continue to keep developing. You kind of know where he's at this point. I think you cut bait at that point, and you don't have to pick up his 5th-year option. He's got a year left. Maybe you trade him or just flat out release him, whatever the case is. But that was one lingering thing that I never really understood going into this season, because you got Tim Boyle. He knows the system. He was with Rodgers in Green Bay. And now the fact that they're even contemplating bringing in another veteran quarterback, it already kind of tells you maybe where their head's at on this. And so at least that's the one saving grace I think the Jets have, is it's either going to work or it's not with Zach Wilson. And by the end of this year, you kind of know, and that situation clears itself up.
So we threw out Matt Ryan. Pete threw out Matt Ryan yesterday on yesterday's show. And I mean, look, it makes sense, but also like, dudes, I mean, watching that, like, Rodgers had 3 dropbacks on 4 snaps and was pressured on and hit on all 3 of them, including the one where, it's wet turf, et cetera. Like, and Zach Wilson was not exactly in clean pockets all night. And now he vacates him and he runs around a bunch, but I'm just saying, he's not afraid to jump over it. But my point is just like, is that offensive line good enough to work with a Matt Ryan who is Pete was trying to throw out that Matt Ryan's really mobile, which, and I'm not trying to, like, he's more mobile than I am. Obviously, like, he's our colleague. I'm not trying to dog him. I'm just saying, exactly. That's an older veteran quarterback. You're going to bring him in behind that offensive line. Is that going to work?
So this was my question to Pete yesterday. Me and Pete were on Spotlight, and we had this discussion. And Brady, I brought up the names you brought up. Jameis Winston made a lot of sense. Gardner Minshew. I just don't think the Colts will be willing to part ways with him, because we already saw Anthony Richardson kind of get banged up at the end of that first game. So if you're the Colts, like, we're not letting Gardner Minshew go for anything less than a 3rd-round pick right now, because we don't know if Anthony. Well, you got to think about it. If Anthony Richardson goes down, who's the backup quarterback?
Don't tell John Brees that.
Yeah, you cross that bridge. Sam Ellinger's there, but you cross that bridge when you get there, right? And I think they feel good enough about Sam to keep 3 on their active. So you'd have to imagine they feel pretty good. Like teams who only have 2 on their active roster, you're not even talking to them because they're not going to give up their backup.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, it would be funny. And someone's mentioned this season. And after week 1, like no one's going to buy into this. But it's like Purdy played so well week 1. It's like, oh, it's going to be Purdy. Why was it Purdy gets hurt? And like Sam Darnold goes in there and plays really well. People would be like, hey, man, let's bring back that Sam Darnold guy. We're like, well, wait a second. We haven't drafted him and traded him away. Like, that's not going to happen.
That would be hilarious.
Right.
But like, that'd be another person I'd say, hey, would you be willing to give Sam Darnold, bring him back in this system, this offense? I don't know if Jets fans
would be
accepting
hilarious.
Weird. But this is my thing. He was talking about Matt Ryan being more mobile than Jameis. I was like, I know he's our coworker and teammate, but Pete, are you watching the same film that I've been watching for the Indianapolis Colts last year?
Well, he is, but he can't see as well. So that's more of the issue with that, right? It's the same film, but he can't see as well.
But getting to the offensive
Dickie V dunk. Now that I've got control of my soundboard again. That was the Dickie V dunk. Anytime somebody slams somebody.
Yeah, but getting to the offensive line, one thing they did really well yesterday is they blocked their tail off in the run game. And I think going forward, that is going to be the key for this Jets offense, right? They're going to minimize putting the game in Zach Wilson's hands. Now, Garrett Wilson is special on the outside, and if you do get him in one-on-one situations, like yesterday, give him an opportunity. Now, that wasn't a great, fade ball by Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson, but it was a heck of a play by Garrett Wilson. But the offensive line, I heard a lot of people talk about, they struggled. But if you look at the 2 plays where there was cut blocks, those are designated cut blocks for the quarterback to get the ball out of his hands on a 3-step, right? And if you look at the film, I think Aaron didn't throw the ball where he got hurt because there was a middle hole linebacker right there, right in the middle of the field. And he was worried about Garrett Wilson maybe getting blown up. So people that say that was on the offensive line, it wasn't, right? It was it's 3-step. You're supposed to get rid of the ball. If it's not there, you have to kill it. And Brady can speak to that too. But how about a quarterback that nobody's really talking about? Josh Johnson, who was with the Jets, who knows this system the last 2 years, right? He was with the Jets and the 49ers, all from the Shanahan tree. So is Nathaniel Hackett. He's the 3rd quarterback for the Ravens right now. Let's not forget, Joe Douglas has a relationship with the Baltimore Ravens. So a 7th-round pick may get it done.
I think the reality is, though, you bring in Josh Johnson, he's not playing right away. Right, like
no, but that's what I'm saying.
Zach's going to play, and Josh is there just to be a backup. Like if you bring in Matt Ryan's there to play. He's not.
Matt Ryan's not coming to be the backup.
He's not coming to be a backup to Zach Wilson. He's playing, and that's I think the difference here is like if you went after Jameis, if you went after even Gardner Minshew, you're bringing them in to get them ready by bye week, to give them 2 weeks to prepare for that first start they're going to have in week 7, and you're playing them. Like that's your intent. And you don't want to have to go this season with Zach Wilson. Now, again, if they make that move, like they're already telling you how they feel about Zach Wilson without outwardly saying it. But I understand your point there, like bringing in more depth at the quarterback spot. And I think they probably need to do that. But I don't know that Josh Johnson's the guy like they're going to bring in and say, hey, let's get this guy ready to start by week 7.
But I sort of look at it like you won 7 games with Zach Wilson last year.
But that's
like,
what I'm saying.
What if Aaron Rodgers made him good enough to win 8?
Hold on. Wasn't 7. You had Flacco in there. No one's mentioned Flacco so far.
Flacco was 1 for the Cleveland game, which is an asterisk.
Was a very Cleveland. Don't discount that. Don't discount that.
That's
okay. No one's done that in how long? Okay.
2,000 years. 2,000 years. It's been like 2,000 games. Literally 2,000 games.
It was elite. Okay. What he did last year in Cleveland was elite. He did it during his time in Baltimore. Trust me. Played against
them. Was that week 1?
Watch that.
What? No, it was week 2.
It was week. Was that the one that sparked the? You know what? I'll tell you what.
Let's take a quick winning after that. Yeah.
Let's take a quick break and we'll come back. We'll discuss if it was Joe Flacco or the week 1 game that sparked Brady's charitable donations. Next.
Freddie, surprise!
Dad. What's going on with your son?
Wish I knew. Got a girlfriend I've never even heard of. When I told him I wanted to spend more time with him, he said no.
This is not a good time.
Have you considered that he hates you?
Don't sit there! Those are Christian Lacroix pillows.
So we can't sit on the couch?
Not in jeans.
Was it the week 1 game? By the way, Brinson, Deuce, Brady here. Was it the week 1 game or the week 2? I feel like it was the Joe Flacco game where like the Flacco makes this insane comeback that hadn't happened in several thousand years or like several thousand games or something like that. And like the history, it's like twice in the history of football. And Brady's like, listen, I'm sorry, Jets fans. I'm not trying to like crap on you. I'm just saying you're not going to win that many games. I'll do this. I think it was the week 2 game that caused that, right?
Probably. I think it was after week 2. And look, the reality was, as I said last year, I thought they'd be a 5-win team based on their schedule, my preseason predictions and all that. People ran with the fact that I said I didn't think they'd be favored in their first 9. That's what I said. They will not be favored, which they were favored one time. One time when they played Denver, who had Brett Rippon. All right. That was the only time they were favored in their first 9. But
people took it as you saying the Jets are going to lose their first 9 games.
Which is not what I said.
Right. I know.
I said they wouldn't be favored. But again, people don't understand betting still. We're still rolling things out state by state. So maybe they'll get to that at some point.
Well, it's also problematic because like people take things out of context all the time. Like I didn't say Kyler Murray was like the 30th worst quarterback in football. I just said we don't know what the hell is going to happen with him this season, so I'm putting him in this tier. And then Kyler's like LOL, and then now all of a sudden, but anyway. I digress. The point being is, the Jets in 2022 actually profiled as a 7.8 win team per the Pythagorean theorem. But my whole larger point was like I think it's like you say F it and roll with Zach Wilson. Like what if he steps up his play because he's been around Aaron Rodgers and he like soaked in enough by osmosis to become a better quarterback, and all of a sudden
by osmosis. Now,
to your point, right?
That's the only thing that's concerning about that is when you had Rodgers and Hackett, their time together in Green Bay. It wasn't like LaFleur's there as a part of that play calling process, but also Rodgers audibling, checking, getting the plays that he wants. And remember, that was like one of those headbutting scenarios between what LaFleur wanted pre-snap, all that, and what Rodgers wanted. And my understanding is kind of more of, as you look at this New York Jets offense, I think one of the things that gave me a lot of confidence in what they were going to be able to do offensively was Hackett and Rodgers together, and the way that's going to work is Rodgers is an extension out there on the field of what they're trying to accomplish from a coaching standpoint. The difference here is like, you're not getting that. You're not getting that wealth of experience, that first ballot Hall of Famer, mind and talent who knows exactly what he wants, what he's seeing, and where he feels comfortable, where he doesn't, what he wants to get to. And that's where I think this puts a lot more pressure on Nathaniel Hackett, which if you go back to last year, obviously things were a disaster there in Denver. Yeah. And that's what becomes concerning moving forward is if you had any concerns about them hiring Nathaniel Hackett in the first place, those were alleviated once Rodgers got on the roster. Now that it will be Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, name your next quarterback, now that becomes a bit more of the forefront of concern of what does this offense look like from a play calling standpoint.
Yeah, and you saw like the memes out there. It was like Robert Saleh like staring into the void, like just just staring off like, oh my God, I have 16 more games of Nathaniel Hackett and Zach Wilson. I didn't sign up for this. I mean, dudes, what's your expectations for the Jets this year? And if you're for Jets fans, they're 1-0. What does a good season look like? And it can even be like 5 wins, but Zach Wilson looks like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I think they're going to win more than 5 games. I mean, they won 7 with Zach at quarterback last year.
Their schedule is brutal.
Them really lean on that
Don't
defense.
Discount Flacco, guys. You keep giving him an extra. It's Flacco was a part of one of those.
No, but Zach won at least 5 as the quarterback. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, their upcoming schedule before their bye, by the way, and we know it's a gauntlet. I don't know how many Aaron Rodgers is winning. Like at Cowboys, Pats at home, Chiefs at home, at Broncos, Eagles at home. That is brutal.
How about that week 5 game though? It's not going to have as much bravado now.
I know that stinks. I want to Sean Payne against Rodgers. Yeah,
but if you look at this offense, right? I think we saw what it's going to be a little bit in the second half, right? We talked about the offensive line blocking their tail off in the run game. I think we see more 13 personnel. Like we saw that yesterday with the Jets, and they literally own the Bills' defensive line. I see they're gonna play action pass. They're gonna try to get Garrett Wilson a couple shots when he's out there on one-on-one coverage. One thing we did talk about, right? You would think 4 to 5 months, Aaron Rodgers with Zach Wilson, some of that had to rub off on him, right? And we saw some of those big-time third down conversions from Zach Wilson, right? We saw that Alan Lazard hitting a hole in zone coverage on 3rd and long. We saw the third down completion to Garrett Wilson, right? And we saw, and Brady can speak to this, the processing of Zach Wilson. One time there was a light box from the Buffalo Bills, and for people that don't understand that, there was only 6 people in the box. What Zach Wilson did is he motioned Dalvin Cook back into the box, checked the play, and they ran it and got 3 yards on 3rd and 2. That's processing. That's growth that we saw from the quarterback position. Now, we also saw an excusable interception. We also saw him run back 20 yards one time. And that's what you would like to get out of his game. Now, the good thing is that happened in the first half. We didn't see that in the second half from Zach Wilson. So, Brady, you know this. When you're not expected to play and get thrust into the action, you're a little jittery sometimes, right? We saw him kind of settle down in the second half. So, again, special teams has been special. It was special last year. They had the Pro Bowler, Justin Hardy, as a special teamer. So that unit is always going to come to play. The defense is always going to come to play. I think the issue last year when the Jets lost 6 straight was Breece Hall not being there. And now you got Dalvin Cook as well. So if one of them goes down, you still feel like you have a reliable back and you can lean on those tight ends in the offensive line to run block. Now, eventually, Zach is going to have to make some throws, and he did that on Monday, but he's going to be more consistent with that. So I think that's how this team is going to look. It's going to be led by this run game.
You're like this team is hoping to be the team it was last year before Breece Hall got hurt, right? You're led by the run.
Correct.
You ask Zach to make some throws. Don't mess it up. Don't turn the football over. When you have to get outside the pocket, but don't create a disaster, and don't put our defense in bad spots, because our defense and our running game will keep us in games. It'll give us a shot to win games as long as you don't mess it up. Like that's where I think this thing's going. But yeah, I mean, look, Zach Wilson, we can talk about that another time. I think one of the more interesting
Joe Flacco
things,
elite, Brady? I think that's the question that needs to be answered.
Well, there's a lot more football that needs to be played before we figure that out. But what's interesting about this is, like, if this whole thing with Aaron Rodgers didn't work this year, like, let's just say they ended up an 8-9 football team. What would have been the status of Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh?
Oh, trouble. Trouble.
I think everybody would have been
everybody's fired.
Sure.
I mean, you would have thought, though, like, this injury almost kind of like kicks the can down the road a year. Yeah. I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves,
think it buys them a year, Brady?
They made the move. They were aggressive about it. They're heading this 4 plays into it. They lose the guy. It's like, well, all right, well, let's push this off for another year before we're really overly critical.
Is the Jets' curse.
You got to kind of think, though, this is
you can't
Robert
fire
Saleh,
the guys who, like, the fluke injury happens. Like, you can't, like, I mean, you know, it's like,
you can't fire him after that. Like, I'm just saying, like, I actually would say, if anything, it now not only allows, like, Zach Wilson to potentially clear up whether he's going to be the guy after Rodgers or long-term or not, it also gives a little more upside to Robert Saleh. Like, if things didn't work out, he gets all the downside. If things do work out, it's because of Rodgers. Now it's like, dude, if you're a playoff team with Zach Wilson and you overcome this year, now you look like a genius. Like, now you're the man. Like, and by the way, if you don't, you lost Aaron Rodgers. All right, let's figure this out. Let's get Aaron back for 2024. Let's go into it. Well, I think this actually is set up, ironically, like, kind of well for Robert Saleh. I know they're disappointed. I know they're probably going to hate hearing this, and fans definitely don't want to hear this. But at least for the head coach, front office, like, it kind of kicks the can down the road for another year.
If you go 8-9, which is doable. I mean, like, your profile is an 8-win team last year.
Yeah.
Right. You go 8-9 with Zach Wilson after losing Aaron Rodgers 4 snaps of the season. The only narrative that you're going to hear in the offseason is what, or throughout the season is going to be like, what would this team have been with Aaron Rodgers? Which is like, people will be like, oh, well, I mean, obviously a 12 or 13 win team. Robert Saleh could go 8-9 with Zach Wilson, maybe win. If they go 9-8, he might win Coach of the Year. If like would. That's actually a pretty good bet if you can get. I'll see what it is out there. But Coach of the Year, like, if they win 8 or 9 games after losing Aaron Rodgers 4 snaps in the season, he is going to get some votes for that for sure.
I think if you make the playoffs as a 9-8 team, for sure.
Okay,
because that's what it's going to take in the AFC. At least that, probably double digits. Because the way I was projecting
I think 10,
you're going to get a double-digit win team that's going to be left out.
Yeah.
Saleh is currently 14-1. It's not great. You think it'd be lower, but I mean, I guess people are kind of expecting, like, all right, if he survives the Rodgers thing. What would you at age 39? I don't know how old you guys are. You guys are young. I'm older.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the injury for a second.
I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break.
We're gonna take a break. Quick break,
and then we'll come back and talk. Will Aaron Rodgers retire after the season? We'll discuss next.
We need the sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Okay, so Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old. I'm older than that. Most people don't believe that. I know, it's weird. Most people think I'm 36. It's fine. I can't remember how old you guys are. I mean, you guys were younger than me, obviously, because I'm old. But
definitely younger than Rodgers.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
I'm not far behind him. I'm not far.
You
behind
guys could tell me you're 29 and I would believe it. Okay. That's how young you two look. I mean, as a 36-year-old, I feel like I recognize that. What do you think the odds are that Aaron Rodgers is done after this year? And like how Brady, one, I'm curious, like the rehab because it left Achilles. So it's not your plant foot, but it's also like, you don't want to go out like that. And at the same time, man, that is a freaking long road back. I did hear AJ Hawk talking on the Pat McAfee show about sort of like how it's like you got to do the rehab anyway. If you're a regular dude walking down the street to your day job in like Manhattan and you rupture your Achilles, you still got to do the rehab. Like just like he's got to do it anyway, right?
You got to be able to walk. So it's not like you're gonna right. It's not like you're not going to do the rehab for an Achilles tear. Only my dad, who got a knee replacement, did basically 2 weeks of rehab and thought he was good. He's like, "Yeah, I've got a
Chopper Quinn."
Now. Yeah.
That's a very Chopper Quinn thing to
now
do.
Chopper, like a year and a half later, is like, "Why does this thing not feel better?" It's like, "Well, Chops, you only did 2 weeks of rehab. All right,
You call
it's supposed to be like 6 months of physical rehabilitation."
Self-taught, Brady. Self-taught.
Jesus.
Chops,
anyway,
Chops and Choppy. Do you call him Choppy?
Choppy, Chops, Chopper. I mean, we were all over it.
What a great name.
So my wife suffered a torn Achilles, and granted, smaller, right, in size. So you would think she could come back faster. She came back super fast. It happened in 2011 World Championships in Japan. She was able to have surgery, have it repaired, and be able to get to the point where at trials back in 2012, she was doing beam, she was doing vault. So it's a lot of
hashtag
force.
Brady no longer in trouble. I like this.
Well, the point is, like, no longer was she facing, like, she was able to do those things, which is a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pounding on that Achilles, on that tendon. So, it can be done. Like the rehab and the recovery is about 6 months now. There's less invasive ways of doing it. It's come a long way, and especially as far as recovery, how they can get them back. And to AJ's point, yeah, of course, like they're gonna have to rehab anyway. So clearly he's going to be ready for it. Now he's incentivized by his contract. He's incentivized for a lot of reasons. And I think he's probably got a sense and a feel for how great it was to be a Jet and how different it was, and really wants to tap into now what that's going to be for 2024. So I think all those things are out there and part of it. By the way, the fact that it's his left, to me, is an even better sign for this reason. When you're a right-handed quarterback, you're constantly dropping back on that right leg and you're pushing. I'll be honest with you. I constantly was dealing with tendonitis. There was times where I thought my Achilles was going to pop by the end of training camp.
Really?
Because you got so used to pushing off. Yeah, if you're dehydrated, if you've, like, everything feels like it's tight back there. So you're constantly getting it worked on, soft tissue work and everything else. And so that it's more problematic to me if it was his right as compared to his left. I mean, this injury isn't happening if he doesn't get rolled up on by Leonard Floyd, right? This is a contact injury. It wasn't like he was like running and it popped on him all of a sudden. So all those things to me are pluses and reasons why. Look, he's going to get surgery soon. He'll be able to start the rehab process. He should be full go, ready to go by 2024. The one thing I think, if you look at his game, and we talked about the cut blocks, Deuce, you mentioned that, and he's talked openly about not liking that because he can't hold on the ball. That's true, but he's getting up there in age of 40. One of the things he's got to really watch what Tom did and learn from is Tom Brady at the end of his career was throwing passes at like 2.5 seconds. Right? It's impossible for a rush to get there if you're catching the ball and in under 2.5 seconds getting the ball out. That really hasn't been Rodgers' style necessarily, but it might need to be as he gets older. And it's not because he can't throw the ball down the field. Clearly, he's got all the tools and the ability to do whatever he wants. It's just so you limit any of these hits, like any of the potential of you getting hit, someone falling on you, rolling up on you, getting close to you, any of that. Like if he can change that portion of it too moving forward, I think that's the one thing that, like, he's got to evaluate and say, I got to find a way to get the ball out of my hand quicker, or we got to do more 7-man protections and block some things up where I have a little extra help because we got playmakers who can make it a contested catch, and I'm accurate enough to put it in a spot where I don't care if the guy's double covered. I'll give my wide receiver an opportunity.
The final 5 years of his career. So Tom Brady was sacked 35 times in 2017 when he won the MVP at age 40. Final 4 years of his career, sacked more than 22 times just once. Like, got to 40, got banged up, still won the MVP, realized I just can't take these hits on my body. Dude, actually, while we were recording this, Robert Saleh said, quote, I'd be shocked if this is the way he's going to go out. And said he hadn't talked to Rodgers either, but like, I mean, you played for this team, and it's like, I don't think that Mike Garafolo had a really interesting report on NFL Network after the game. He said he was talking about how people around the Jets were like, look, he's played in Super Bowls, he played at Green Bay. We think he's going to be kind of like, whoa, when he comes running out into this field on 9/11, he's holding the flag, and Garofalo said, like, you can see the smirk on Rodgers' face where he's kind of like, wow. Like, I mean, like, do you think, like, it's sort of, I mean, pun intended, like a bite of the apple here, he sort of really does want to come back?
Yeah, I think Brady kind of alluded to this about talking about Rodgers going to a new place, right? You find youthfulness. And I think that's what Aaron Rodgers found when he went to New York. And I was talking to some people, and Brady, you said you were there. They said they hadn't seen MetLife like that in forever. Like the excitement, the energy that was in that building. And the Green Bay Packers, I've played there most.
Like literally the entire life of the building, probably for the
Jets.
Yeah,
they have a loyal fan base, but I believe Jet fans are way rowdier than the Packers fans. Like when we went there, it was never really that loud in Green Bay. But the New York faithful, as Brady talked about, like there was so much excitement around Aaron Rodgers. So just knowing the competitor he is, having competed against him, like I'm with Robert Saleh. There's no way you want that to be your last play in the NFL, right? A torn Achilles on the field, especially only 4 plays into the season. To Brady's point, it's one thing if it's at the end of the game, or if it's week 17 or it's week 16 that happens. But for you to put in all that work to prove the doubters wrong, because that's essentially what he was trying to do this year.
Do all that fake excitement for Hard Knocks, like to really be a leader on Hard Knocks that entire time.
Yeah, to go out there in 4 plays and for it to end like that, there's no way. Just knowing the competitor Rodgers is, I don't believe that's going to be his last play. I do believe he comes back. Now, I do have a question for Brady.
Ooh.
Let's say Zach Wilson is a comparable quarterback with this championship defense, the run game, and the Jets win 10 games and get into the playoffs. What do you do next year? In regards to, you still start Aaron Rodgers? That's why I wanted to ask.
Hell yeah, it's not even debatable. Like, yeah, I know you're talking about the pipe dreams as a Jets fan and person.
I thought you were asking Brady. Hey Brady,
I mean, if he played
are
like
you willing to come out of retirement to play for the Jets?
Yeah. Well, there's a workman's comp claim. I don't think Mr. Johnson's too excited about that. I don't think there'll be any time.
Oh, my bad.
So I got some communication after that whole. That's the thing they don't tell you, Leger. It's like when you make those workman's comp claims, owners get pretty upset about that.
They hate it.
Is it turf related? Please tell me it's turf related.
It was out on the practice field where it happened. So it was, and they have great practice facilities. It wasn't anything like that. Just something that happened. Yeah. Anyway, we're not going to get into that.
Brady don't want that smoke.
Not the Johnson & Johnson smoke, man.
No, you don't. Yeah, Brady. You see that Brady's skin? He don't want to mess around and get Johnson & Johnson mad at him.
I don't want to get jabbed either. A bunch of jabs coming at you. Which, by the way. I mean, is this karma, by the way, for Rodgers not wanting to get you?
Yo, still too soon, bro.
I mean, those jokes were the thing about like Twitter and social media that's so wild is like this entire Jets season was absolutely ripped apart in like a split second, and it took maybe 5 seconds for people to start just pew 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 with like some like people are Aaron Rodgers questionable return. It was like immunization, and then like I saw a tweet. It was like like Brady joke at the top. It was like, hey, dude, lasting 4 minutes is pretty good these days. Like that's not bad. It's like Jesus, man. I'm just saying, social media.
I mean,
crazy.
You did see the bar though, by the way, right? They were going to be. You didn't watch all that? If the Jets lose, they were going to buy everyone.
Oh, yeah, that was incredible. Yeah.
So as soon as Rodgers went down, people started running up the tabs.
Run that tab up.
And then the next thing you know, you see the punt return in overtime.
Got to pay it out.
There's a video and people were like, oh my God, like, oh boy, I just rang up a $750 bar tab chugging Fireball, and the Jets won with Zach Wilson. That
bar's definitely in the black this month.
I would have been firing off shots. You're like, it was like no top shelf. So you're like, give me the nicest like ranch water I can get. I want like give me a Casamigos and like
give me that Louis.
Yeah. Well, you can't get but like I'll also take 42 car bombs and like all of a sudden
Good Lord.
Or whatever. Cement mixers, Fireball shots.
Jaeger bomb would be
nice,
wouldn't
have made it that night.
Yeah, a ton of Jaeger bombs, a bunch of RBVs, Pete Prisco style.
RBDs.
RBVs, Red Bull vodkas. That's what Pete drinks.
That's true.
Pete has an unhealthy Red Bull thing.
He's
going.
too old for that. He needs
I
to
know.
stop.
Yeah. Well, now he's on the Ozempic or whatever to like. He is. He said that on the podcast.
I know. I didn't know if that was public. I mean,
he got on there and goes, Ozempic. I was like, all right, Pete.
he's skinny Pete now. So I told him, I was like, should you be mixing that and testosterone? I'm not sure you should be taking both at the same time.
Right? Yeah. It's like old man vampire like induction. Like it's gonna turn him into like a bloodthirsty like.
Or he's gonna live forever. He'll live forever.
Nobody wants that to happen. Okay. We're not going to talk about Thursday Night Football because we just don't have enough time.
Quick thoughts.
Do you guys want to make a pick real quick on Thursday Night Football? No Garrett Bradbury.
That's a big concern because if you look at film, Jalen Carter rushed his tail off last week versus New England Patriots, and the interior three for the Vikings, they struggled, especially when Garrett, Bradbury went out, and Darisaw got beat up in that game, but he came back in. So we'll see on a short week. I mean, the Eagles are dealing with some injuries too. Nakobe Dean played well. He's on IR now.
I think Philly
Bradbury
stomps. I think
got
Philly
a concussion.
The Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
the line was 7. It's already come down to a point. So it's now Eagles giving 6 at home.
6.
The interesting thing, too, that came from last week was Baker Mayfield had mentioned one of the players at halftime, they knew the Vikings signals. So they knew all the defensive signals when playing cover 2, cover 3, everything else. Maybe one of the reasons, too, that Tampa Bay was able to come back, beat the Vikings. So Brian Flores and that defense for Minnesota is going to have to figure out a way now of not giving away what coverages they're playing. And it's tough to do sometimes, right? You try to keep things simple. Leger, you know this. You're playing a new defense. You're trying not to create too much, havoc for a defense out there communicating, especially one that's going to be, in this case, playing on the road. So we'll see how the Minnesota Vikings respond. I think it's going to be a close game. Should be a fun game to watch. But I like the Vikings in this case to cover. I like them at 7-6 now. It's like, all right, yeah, you got to like it a little bit more. On that side.
Something that Brady said makes a lot of sense too. It's a new young defense, right? Brian Flores is in. You don't want to make it too complicated. And Brady, you can speak to this on Thursday night. You don't have as much time to game plan, so I don't know if they can change those signals. So that's something the Eagles will pick up on.
Hold on. I played on offense. You played defense. All right, now I'll say this. Don't get mad at me for saying this, but we always felt like on offense,
bro.
Our guys were a little smarter, so we felt like we could do and change a little more. On defense,
I knew he was going there.
We have dummy calls. We're like, hey, let's just see if we could say this if they listen to last week's broadcast to hear this call, And we it could be Ohio. And like you see the defense, they'd be like, what? Like, all right, they didn't listen to last week's broadcast. They didn't listen. They didn't listen to anything. Hey, we're going to run power to the right. Power to the right.
One thing I am excited to see.
Well, I was going to say my only job here. I mean, like, I'm not to cut you off, dudes, but my only job is to get us out on time. And Brady does have to be on HQ and I believe 10 minutes or on Spotlight. You probably do too, right? No.
Nah.
Okay. Well, Brady's got to be on Spotlight in 10 minutes. I'll get yelled at if he's late, and I don't like getting yelled at unless I absolutely have to. So you guys are going to buy
that jersey at least before we go out. Hey, you can put it on. You never put it on.
I know. I forgot. I'm sorry.
Well, you're good in now.
All right, I'll put it on now. All right, Dudes, you want to let Dudes make his point while I put this thing on?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I'm excited to see real quick is Darius Slay had a heck of a game versus Justin Jefferson last year in this game. I believe it was a primetime game. I believe it was Monday Night Football, if I'm not mistaken. Kirk Cousins usually struggles in primetime, but he's actually done pretty well on Thursday Night Football. I still like the Eagles to win this game, though.
I like the Eagles to win,
but I think the Minnesota can cover.
I think it's maybe if Minnesota covers, it's a backdoor cover. So we got Viking. I got Eagles. Brady's got Eagles, Vikings in terms of.
I think Eagles will win pretty easily.
Okay, so we got
Cousins loves the backdoor cover, so he'll be in there.
Sure will. Oh, wow. All right, for Brady, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.